Hello students, welcome to F.Y.B.Sc class. Today we are going to discuss about the nutritional requirement from the unit Microbial cultivation and growth from Microbiology paper 2 MB122 Microbial cultivation and growth. The learning objectives of this lecture is to understand nutritional requirements of bacteria. What are macronutrients? And in addition to macronutrients, some micronutrients are also the nutritional part of that bacteria. So, microbial cultivation is the process of actively facilitating the microbial growth. So how we will obtain the facilitating growth of the microbial cell? So for that we have to provide optimum requirement, nutrient requirement as well as environment should be suitable so that the maximum growth of that organism should take place. Then what are the nutrients? Nutrients are the substances which are used in the biosynthesis process. Okay, and these nutrients can also be used as a energy source, and therefore for the overall growth of this microorganism they are the required nutrients. First, we will discuss about the macronutrients or the macroelements. Okay. Now here you can see the 95% of cells dry weight will consist of macroelements. So it include carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, iron. All are macroelements or macronutrients. Now we are going to see why they are called as the macroelements or macronutrients. The 95% of the dry weight of microbial cell is mainly consist of the major elements which are known as the macroelements or the macronutrients. So it includes mainly carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium and iron. Now, why they are called as the macroelements or the macronutrients, as these are the elements which are required by microorganism in relatively large amount, and therefore they are referred as macroelements or the macronutrients. Now, if we see the first six elements, that is the carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur and phosphorus. Now all these elements, they are mainly involved in the synthesis of carbohydrate, lipids, proteins and the nucleic acid, and therefore these are the major elements which are found within every cell. So, in addition to the six major element, the four macro element which was remaining, which also act as a macro elements or the macronutrients. Now, what is the role of that macronutrients? They act as a cations and they play variety of role. For example, potassium. So potassium, it is required for the activity by different enzyme. Now this potassium is also involved in protein synthesis. The second macro element is the calcium. Now this calcium, you know endospore. What are the endospores? So this calcium is required or it contribute to the heat resistance property, as they are involved or they are the major component of the bacterial endospore. Now next element is the magnesium. So magnesium will act as a cofactor and cofactors are mainly required for the activity of particular enzymes. So this magnesium, they mainly form complex with the adenosine triphosphate, that is the ATP, and therefore they also play a role in the stabilization of ribosomes. Ribosomes are the unit which are mainly involved in the protein synthesis and as well as in stabilization of cell membrane also. This magnesium, they play important role. Now next one is the iron. So iron, it is a part of cytochromes and it also acts as a cofactor for variety of enzymes. In addition to that, this iron is mainly present within those proteins which have a capacity to carry electrons. So, in addition to this macronutrient, cell will also require some of the micronutrients which are also known as the trace element, and these are the, although they required in smaller quantity, but they also play very important role in the overall growth of microorganisms. So which substances or the element we can call them as a micronutrients? It include manganese, zinc, cobalt, molybdenum, nickel and copper. So, although the requirement of this nutrient is small, but still the cell require them for their growth. So, which are the sources for the micronutrient? So, they may be found as a contaminants in the water or glassware and the regular media components, by using which we can prepare the nutritive media for the growth of microorganism. So all these water, glassware and the media components, they can provide them to the cell. So micronutrients, it include the manganese, cobalt, zinc, molybdenum, nickel, copper. They are known as the micronutrients because they require in smaller quantity. Although the requirement is less, but still they are most essential for the growth of microorganism. Now micronutrients, although their requirement is small, but still they are most important because they normally form a part of enzyme. So they can act as a cofactor. Enzymes are proteinic in nature. So cofactors are the non-proteinic part which is attached to that particular enzymes. So this cofactor, it is without the cofactor, enzyme is unable to show its activity. In addition to that, these micronutrients, they also play a role or they can also act as a catalysis for the variety of reaction, and in maintenance of protein structure also these micronutrients, they play important role. Now let's have a look the role of each and every micronutrient. So let's talk about the zinc. Zinc, it is present at the active site of some enzymes. Now, what is the active site? Active site is the site where mainly substrate will bind. Now, zinc is also involved in the association of regulatory and the catalytic subunit in one of the enzyme which is found in the organism Escherichia coli, that is aspartate carbamoyl transferase. So within this enzyme, within the catalytic subunit, this zinc is mainly present. So it will act as a cofactor. So the next macronutrient is the manganese. Manganese, it is also a part of enzyme and it mainly involved in the transfer of phosphate group. So mainly kinases kind class of enzyme, they are involved in the transfer of phosphate group. So within this manganese will act as a cofactor. The next micronutrient is the molybdenum, which was symbolized as MO2 plus. So molybdenum is mainly required for the fixation of nitrogen, and the last one is the cobalt. So cobalt is the component of vitamin B12. So if you see the micro elements or the micronutrients what we have discussed, all are cationic in nature because all of them carry positive charge on them. So why the cell needs this carbon, hydrogen and the oxygen elements? So if you see the backbone of all organic molecule, then it is made up of carbon. So organic molecule, it include carbohydrate, proteins and the lipids. Okay. So all of them will have a carbon backbone. Now, because of the presence of carbon skeleton, this organic molecule, they can serve as the carbon sources. Now, in addition to the carbon, these organic molecule, they also consist of oxygen and the hydrogen atoms. So, because of the presence of carbon, oxygen and the hydrogen atom, the organic molecule, they are present in the most reduced form, and because of them, they can act as a energy source. In addition to that, these organic nutrients or the molecules, they have electrons, and these electrons they can donate to other molecules. So when you study electron transport chain at that time, you know the electrons which was released during the glycolysis pathway as well as tricarboxylic acid cycle, all are finally all the electrons, they are donated to the oxygen atom, and finally it get converted into the most reduced form, that is the water. When all these pathways are and cycles are operated, at that time a most amount of energy is released, and therefore we can say organic molecules, they can also serve as the energy source. So, amount of energy within a particular organic molecule, it will depend on the its reduced form. So, if a particular organic molecule is present in more reduced state, then we can say it's having higher energy. So, if you compare the energy level between the lipid and the carbohydrate, then obviously lipids, because of the highly reduced form, it's having higher energy content as compared to the carbohydrates. So when the electron transfer process will take place, that is, electrons will move from reduced electron donor to the electron acceptor. So when this process is carried out, at that time some amount of energy is released, and the electrons always transfer from the donor which is more negative, which have more negative reduction potential, and they will be transferred to the acceptor which is more, which have more positive potential. Therefore we can say carbon sources can also act as a energy source. So references, these are the references. Thank you.